Okay, folks, it's Elizabeth Wilkins-Mckee in Virginia. Again, I'm a psychotherapist. Today, I'm going to talk about the blessing of imperfection. So the first thing I wanted to share with you is that therapists, we really need to see our own therapists at times too. That's just the way it is. If I am my own tool, and if I am not functioning and doing well, my work, which is my passion, is going to suffer. So I was seeing this psychotherapist here in Virginia, actually, in the Woodbridge area. She's a very wise and thoughtful provider. And she taught me this idea of being perfectly imperfect. And the notion being that we're created that way, that our perfection, if you will, is that we're not perfect. And I think this really resonates with parenthood, with postpartum, and with being pregnant. Remember we talked yesterday about starting where you are? So we're going to pick back up with that at that point and say, wherever you are right now, if you're like a lot of people, you're thinking that where you're starting is not perfect. What I want to share with you is something we know to be true about children, but it's true for human beings generally. Perfect helps no one. And children need to be exposed to imperfectness so they are resilient and can navigate the world. So these expectations that have really heated up since, I don't have data on this, but I'll just say this is what I've noticed in my career. As soon as the Dr. Sears and attachment parenting stuff came out, which, by the way, I'm not trying to say that all of that is wrong, or that Dr. Sears, that the authors wanted this to be how people metabolize the information. That's not what I'm saying at all. And for those of you who didn't have this experience and really loved that material, awesome. But for myself, and also for a lot of my clients, in fact, several of them had book burnings of Dr. Sears. There was something in that material for some people that resonated in this notion that if I don't meet all of my child's needs all the time, I'm failing. Now, again, it does not say that in that book. I want to be really clear. Just like I talked about the message I got from my father-in-law about teeth brushing, right? Like that, his intention was not that it stuck to me in the way it did, right? I want to be clear, I don't think that this is the purpose of attachment parenting. But I started to notice when that material became more popular, I also noticed that products were hitting the market and people were buying them with the expectation that we're kind of meeting all of our kids' needs all of the time. So there's been an economic drive to this. If you want examples, I'm happy to provide those at a later point. And this is like change over time, really. It used to be that parents weren't really like this. Like my mom, she passed away about, how old's my son? 10 years ago now. I remember her telling me this story. You guys are going to be so sicked out by this. I hope that Dr. Fauci doesn't hear this, because this may be an infection control nightmare. But anyway, so there's this picture of me. I must have been feeding myself because I was under 2, right? I was in a high chair and I was covered with food. And there's a picture, my parents bred Siberian Huskies, and there's a picture of me with the Huskies cleaning me off. The other thing my mom did is when I was really dirty, she would pick me up and the high chair. The high chairs were like not as heavy as they are now, and she would put me in the shower in the high chair and turn on the faucet. And she talked about this and found and was fine talking about it with other parents. And it wasn't like this thing that was shameful or embarrassing. And it was just like, hey, we're all doing the best we can all the time. I think now I'm at a point in my parenting that if I had done those things, I could admit that. But certainly early on in the parenting process, it was really hard for me to admit. I could admit to my best friend some of my mom hacks and mom fails. Like, my daughter was in a bathtub and I turned my head around for a second and found that she was eating her poop. Okay. And so I had to develop this like attitude of just laughing at how crazy it all was. I mean, when in your life do you think you're going to say, honey, we don't eat our own poop? That was never on my radar for something that we would ever talk about. So to kind of metabolize all of this material, what I'm trying to say is, you are perfectly imperfect, and you are that way by design, and that is essential to parenthood. That is essential to your well-being. That is an essential lesson in life that we all have to learn. We're all messing up all the time. If I can have my kid eat poop, anyone can have experiences like that. Remember, you're doing the best you can. Third, be aware of taking in medical advice from non-medical providers. If you're really struggling with all the data coming at you, I really recommend you shut down your social media if you can, and only be in touch with your pediatrician or your primary care, assuming these are practitioners you really respect, your OB, whatever, and go from there. Avoid the spin, avoid the material out there that is inaccurate, and hopefully these tips today will give you something to chew on, help you feel a little less alone. And again, please remember, this isn't a replacement for psychotherapy. If you're looking for a local psychotherapist or support group, please, I want to refer you to Postpartum Support International. And be well, and I hope to be returning on Monday. Thanks. Bye-bye.